I was, strategizing. It's one thing to get into the zone, but we still gotta catch that monster.
Right.
So did I miss anything?
Fred Rachani of TSC. We have right here via Google Meet a very special guest. He is a Canadian actor. He's been in the game for quite a while, done some great things. Most recently, starred in the award-winning Guardians of the Galaxy video game from Eidos Montreal and Square Enix, available on all major platforms. He plays Peter Quill, aka the Star-Lord. We are talking to actor John McLaren. John, thank you so much for taking the time to do this, man. How's everything going?
Hey, what's up, Fred? Thank you for having me. I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
Wow. Let's just get right to it. Guardians of the Galaxy won Best Narrative at the Game Awards hosted by Jeff Keighley. Can you talk a little bit about the fan feedback that you've received since joining the Guardians family?
Yeah, of course. The feedback has been incredible. I mean, I'd like to, if you don't mind, I'd like to give a shout out to Mary
Absolutely.
Demaro and JF Degas, Mary's team, the narrative team. Mary is the executive narrative director for Guardians, and as you saw at the Game Awards, they absolutely knocked it out of the park, and they did such an incredible job creating this world, this story, the atmosphere of the game, these characters that we got to play. And I got to shout out her and the entire team, because just thank you for creating such a incredible story for the world to play, and sharing it with everyone, and us as actors. It's not every day that you get to partake and get to play around in a world with a script that is as good as this one, and it's a very well-deserved award, and I congratulate them all. But yeah, to answer your question, Fred, the fans, the players, the community has been absolutely incredible. It's if I could be honest, it's been a little bit mind-blowing. You kind of come into these things when you have a big release with a healthy level of optimism, but you try to keep yourself at bay. But I've been absolutely blown away by everyone who's reached out with kind words and supported the game, and continue. They send us photos and fan pics. There's an amazing photo mode in the game, and the community is absolutely blown up. And there's some really incredible artwork that's been coming out of that, and I couldn't ask for more. It's been absolutely wonderful.
And I like how you guys really nailed Peter Quill. All the qualities of him. He's a likable guy. At times he can be a not likable guy. He's a very flawed individual. I personally like the random scenes where he sees a mirror and he's just standing there for a minute, and you're waiting for something to happen, and he just keeps posing and fixing his teeth and fixing his hair.
Just a little bit of this, or some of
Yes,
that.
exactly. There you go. I love it.
Again, I mean, it comes back to it. It really does come back to the writing team. They did an incredible job at just nailing down not only Star-Lord or Peter Quill, but like the entire team and the entire game. They really created a unique story, characters, and a world that kind of stands apart from not only the MCU but the comics. And they really nailed down making this their own, which is absolutely phenomenal.
Definitely. And I've interviewed a number of Marvel actors in the past who have said, whenever you get an offer or at least an opportunity to audition for any type of Marvel role, there's a lot of hush hush, a lot of confidentiality. You don't necessarily know what you're getting into until you actually get to studio or start auditioning. So how did that process happen for you? Did you know that you were going to be auditioning for this specific role of Guardians of the Galaxy, or was it just kind of hush hush and you learned as you went along?
Yeah, so I mean, I was very lucky with my casting experience. I mean, to preface this, I grew up playing video games, Marvel video games. I grew up. I lived and breathed like the '90s X-Men animated series. Like, yes.
I love. I mean, Wolverine especially. I mean, that all the
Yes.
kids these days just know the meme where he's sitting in the bed, but that show was fire.
Oh man, it was incredible. I mean, they just announced that they re-released it as well. But I mean, and as a Canadian, Wolverine, come on.
Yeah.
But no. So I grew up with this stuff, and I grew up playing video games, and so Yeah, I mean, I came into it as a fan, and you're right. Like it's very, very hush hush. So you kind of get an audition like you would any audition from your agent. Um, but as you said, with a Marvel product, it's very hush hush. So you're getting sides or a part of the script that is they've changed all the names. It doesn't say Star-Lord, it doesn't say Gamora, Drax, Groot, Rocket. It was all code named. I think my name in that was like Commander Jones or something. Like I don't know. I can't remember, but um, there were some very telltale things in the script that kind of tipped me off, and I was like, "Oh my god, I I think this is Guardians," you know, and so I kind of knew, but I didn't know, but I just I committed to the idea that this might be Guardians, and I went for it, and luckily it worked out. And I wasn't in the casting city, so I had to just put myself on tape. Normally you would go to a casting studio, you would show up and audition in front of usually the director, maybe some of the producers, and stuff like that. But I not being in the city, I just put myself on tape, sorry. And lucky enough, I booked it right off of that. Normally, you would maybe get a call back and they'd bring you in, but thank you, Eidos. They just kind of said, "Yep, that's our guy," and the rest is history, so to speak.
That's awesome. And I'm assuming you did most of the work prior to the pandemic, right?
Yeah, I would say probably 85% of the work, I'm guessing here, was done pre-pandemic, and then when the pandemic hit, things, of course, shut down for probably a 3 or 4 month period. We got special news that we could come back and work, and we were deemed an essential. Entertainment as a whole was deemed an essential workplace, so we got to come back, and Eidos did an incredible job of creating a safe atmosphere and putting all the right steps in place to make sure that we're tested and we're working in a safe environment during the pandemic. And we ended up getting through crunch time pretty good and knocking out the end of the game. So
And when you were in that whole process, like 85% of it prior to the pandemic, were you guys all kind of in the same room interacting with each other?
yeah, I mean, it kind of blew my mind because from my understanding and the work that I had done prior, like you're usually only having two, maybe three people in the room at once. But I mean, we had a full Guardian squad up in there, so it was pretty amazing. And which is to say, we're very lucky because with a team such as the Guardians that rely so heavily on banter and camaraderie, and we never stop talking in the game. So it's really nice as an actor, from an actor standpoint, to be actually physically within the same room as people and playing off of each other, because it's very different if you're just for example, only doing voice, where you're in a vocal booth and you have no one to play off of. You're kind of guessing how the line should be delivered. You're guessing how the other characters may or may not be delivering their lines, versus when you're in a full performance motion capture scenario you're in the same room all the time. It's live. You're playing off each other in real time, and I think that really I think it really shows in the game.
Was it hard to not burst out laughing at times when the actor who played Drax would say, "Shut up, tree"?
Almost impossible. There was not a day that we went into the studio where we were not laughing. It was such a great and special experience. It was a dream come true. It really was.
If I'm not mistaken, is Guardians the very first video game you've worked on?
It is not, actually.
Okay.
It is not. I was able to do a little bit of work. I remember doing an E3 demo for Far Cry 3 back in the day. It was just a small little thing, and then I did Far Cry 5. I did various voices in that, just for supporting characters around the world and stuff like that. But in terms of a full performance motion capture type scenario, Guardians was my first. Yeah.
And with motion capturing, I mean, how much work did that go into it with everything? A lot of people think like when you just do the voice acting, like you're done. Maybe they'll face scan you as well, but a lot of times too, especially in a game like this, like you do have to kind of wear the suit and everything else. So how was that whole experience?
I mean, there was a day or two where I went in for a full facial scan. It was kind of neat. Like you're kind of sitting in this cage surrounded by literally hundreds of cameras, and you just don't move, and they're taking pictures of your face, and then you're doing different facial gestures, and they're capturing you from literally every single angle and every single inch of you. Um, and then yeah, when you're any given day in the motion capture studio, you're head to toe in that skin tight bodysuit. You got the balls all over you. You're wearing a special helmet, sorry, that has a camera attached to it that kind of comes out in front of your face. That's capturing all your facial movements and stuff like that. It's a wild ride, man. It's really interesting, but I liken it to some sort of blending of maybe theater and film work. Whereas in film, you have cameras to deal with, you have lighting equipment to deal with, you have sets to deal with. Where at the end of any given scene, you're cutting and you're moving cameras, you're moving that equipment, you're sometimes changing complete locations. So you have a lot more downtime in film. Whereas like theater, with gaming, there's no real setups in between. You're just in one room. The cameras are all preset, the infrared cameras that are capturing your movement, and it's just go, go, go. So it's a lot like theater in that respect, where you're at work and there's really no stopping. So it's a lot of fun. It's very challenging as an actor. It's a different way or a different form of acting, and I really did. I absolutely fell in love with it.
Well, you guys, like I said before, definitely did one hell of a job with Guardians. So props to
Thank
you
you.
and your team. Really just awesome stuff. Really have been enjoying the game. But of course, a lot of people, while they may know you now from Guardians, may not know that you've been doing this for quite a while. So for
Yeah.
John, how did this whole acting journey start in the first place?
I started modeling actually a long time ago. Oh man, you're aging me. No, I started in high school. Funny enough, a partner of mine at the time submitted behind my back to some agencies some photos of mine, and I got picked up by an agency, and I started modeling, but I only did it for about a year. And the agency I was with at the time also represented actors, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to try this acting thing?" And I was like, "Sure." Like I'm like 14 at the time or something. And funny enough, I went on my very first audition, and I booked the role. And I absolutely fell in love with it, and I kind of dived in head first from there, and I haven't stopped since. I've been doing as much as I can, on and off earlier in my career, when I was living back home. But it's a lot more now. I'm very, very grateful for the opportunities that I've had.
When did you get to the point where, I mean, I don't know if you ever get really comfortable as an actor, but when did you get to the point where you felt like things were getting a little bit more steady for you, where it's like, okay, like I'm officially like a working actor now?
I think it was probably a few years into moving to Toronto. I moved out of my hometown of Ottawa. What's up, Ottawa? And I moved to Toronto, and a few years in, I started booking pretty regularly. So the pressures came down or came off a little bit, but it's still tough, man. I have a lot of respect for anyone who's an artist. It's not an easy thing to do, whether it's film, TV, painting, anything in the arts is it's a real hard industry and path to take. There's a lot of pushback for a very long time, but respect to all the artists out there. It can be a bit of a grind, but you just got to keep at it, you know?
Not that Canada's that far away from the US, obviously neighbors of the north, but I do feel like these days with a number of titles, I mean, just some series that come to mind for me, Vikings, Working Moms,
Yeah.
obviously all these different video games that are made in Canada as well. It almost feels like with technology these days, the world has gotten smaller. Do you find it a little bit easier for you as an actor who's primarily based in Canada to get more opportunities?
Oh, absolutely. Like it's especially with, I mean, maybe that's one, maybe that's a silver lining of the pandemic, but it really has kind of in that respect brought down borders because, I'm auditioning all the time for stuff in Canada, not only Canada, sorry, but also the States. Like you're auditioning all over the place. I've worked in the States, I've worked in Canada, I've worked overseas, and it's just kind of by proxy of the digital age that we live in. It's completely, it's broken down those borders, which is nice for us in our industry anyways.
And you mentioned earlier that when you auditioned for Guardians, you said it was like a self tape, like kind of like you did like your own like audition and then sent it to them, or did you have to like still physically go somewhere?
Yeah, so often, like especially if I'm auditioning for things that are out of the city that I'm currently in, like if I'm auditioning for something, in the States or, even out of province, you're not there in person. So typically what you will do is put yourself on tape. You'll put your audition on tape and send it off. And then typically, normally what happens is if they like you, then they'll bring you in and you'll do a screen test or something like that. And you'll kind of have a second, maybe third, even sometimes 4 rounds of casting before you get the role. But I thank my lucky stars that I just only put myself on tape, and Eidos took a chance on me, and I'm forever grateful that they did, and took a lot of stress out of the casting process for myself.
And the reason I bring that up again is because, a lot of actors have told me during the pandemic that it's just kind of become the norm now, where more often than not, you are self-taping. I mean, sometimes I'll ask you for a screen test as well, but it's just
Yep.
kind of become standard, whereas before it wasn't a normal thing. Is that the case for you?
I would say pre-pandemic, there was still some of it, but the norm now is like pretty much 99.9% of my tapes or auditions, sorry, are tapes.
Wow.
It's just kind of the way the world has gone. And
Awesome.
to be honest, when things are fully open again, I don't know if it'll go back.
Mhm. Well, hey, you know what? If it makes things more efficient, it makes lives easier for everybody,
Yeah,
and you know what? It could get you involved in more projects. Hey, why not?
exactly.
Well, we always like to ask all our guests some kind of random rapid fire questions just to get to know them better. Are you
Sure.
ready, John?
I am. I hope so.
All right. I hope you're ready, John. Here we go. Favorite late night snack?
Oh man. Popcorn.
Favorite Guardians character other than your own?
Ooh, you can't do that to me. Come on.
Uh,
I'm gonna go with Cammy, the llama.
all right. There you go. There you go. I like that one. It's unique. Favorite superhero besides Guardians?
Wolverine,
He's the man. Love him.
hands down.
You mentioned that you're also a big gamer. We're a big gamer growing up.
Yeah.
What's your all-time favorite video game, and what's your all-time favorite video game console?
People are either gonna love me or hate me for these answers. You know that, right? Oh, favorite all-time game. Can I name a couple of
Yeah, go
franchises?
for it. And if there's any
'Cause
current ones you're playing now too, besides Guardians, feel free to
that's
shout them
really
out.
hard for me. I am yeah, I've actually played through. I streamed Guardians on Twitch on my Twitch channel. So I beat that. Other than that, favorite franchises. I mean, one of my favorite franchises of all time is Legend of Zelda,
Yeah.
hands down. That is probably my number one. I'm a big Halo guy as well. I love Halo. Big fan of The Last of Us and God of War
Mhm.
as well. Any story driven, narrative driven games, I'm usually all on board with. I kind of I'm an every console type of guy. I haven't dipped into the PC space yet, but I'm very close. It's very tempting right now. Um, but yeah, Mario. I grew up playing Nintendo. Like I was born in the '80s. I've had probably almost every Nintendo console. Favorite console all time? I mean, that's so tough.
Oh, okay. How
Yeah,
about this?
I want to
What
go.
was the first? What was the first console maybe you got?
First console I ever had was the original NES.
Okay. Cool.
Absolutely. Favorite of all time? Probably the Super Nintendo, or the N64, just because that was like in the 90s. I was that 14, 15-year-old kid. Like I had all the time in the world. I'm not really working yet. And I was just plugging through video games 24/7. But I mean, I love every console. I have them all. I got Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo.
Same here. You make me feel better about myself.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Oh man, and actually, I love that about Guardians too. Because no disrespect to any open world games, I love open world games. Those are cool too, for sure.
Yeah,
But sometimes it's nice just to play like a narrative, like just like a regular like, narrative that doesn't totally deviate like all over the place and everything. That's kind
yeah.
of like where you don't get lost, like you're doing certain side quests. And it's fine. I love those games too. But I thought that was like a really pleasant surprise for me going into Guardians, not knowing a whole lot about it. I know about the story, but not about the gameplay itself. And really, I enjoyed it. And I think a lot of people were kind of pleasantly surprised too, because it was just very straightforward, but it still kind of took you on a ride.
I think the gaming industry as a whole, kind of for the last 5 or so years, maybe more, have it started to lean on those open world, ongoing gaming spaces, like games as a service spaces, where they're a continued living, breathing entity online. And I understand why, because they're absolutely phenomenal. But unfortunately, I think by proxy of that, you're right. Like a lot of those story driven games, they just lessened, I think. And it's really nice to see games, like Guardians, kind of come back with these, it's just a beautiful story driven narrative game. It tells an amazing story. And I think sometimes you lose a bit of that, story impact with these open world games, because they have to do so many things at once. But again, I got to shout out, Mary and the narrative team, because they hit a home run with the story on this game. This is such an incredible story and such an incredible experience. So thank you. Thank you guys.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk about another incredible experience that might have happened in your career. What's your most awkward moment as an actor?
I wouldn't say it's awkward, but I was taken back. I was very surprised. I was shooting a film called House at the End of the Street, starring Jennifer Lawrence. And I remember hanging out with her. It was literally right before she took off to go shoot X-Men, I believe it was. But we were hanging out on set, and we were just talking. I can't remember how we even started, but we started playing like patty cake with each other. And I was like, oh, okay. Jennifer Lawrence wants to play. Okay, let's go. I can't remember how we fell into it. It happened organically, but I was like, I can't believe I'm playing patty cakes with Jennifer Lawrence.
That's awesome. Now, every actor I feel like has at least kind of one cult film or cult show that they've been involved in. When I say cult show, I mean one that kind of has like a bit of a cult following that maybe didn't get enough love back in the day that people nowadays kind of remember fondly. For me, I feel like that on your IMDb is The Covenant. So do you have any memories of The Covenant?
Yeah, I mean, and the one that people seem to call me on the most is when I threw up on camera. That was the big one. One of the guys, flashed his eyes and used his powers on me and made me throw up all over somebody. But no, I remember there was a bar scene, and I just remember having a lot of fun because all the guys on set were great. And in between actually shooting, we were in a bar that had a pool table, and we played a lot of pool and stuff while in between takes while we were shooting. And it was a lot of fun. So if there's any Covenant fans out there, it was a great cast, a great group of people, and I had a lot of fun on it.
Moving forward, would you like to do more of voice acting, or do you still prefer traditional acting?
I don't think it's one over the other. I think for me, it's more about, finding stuff that, again, tells a good story. That's what, like, as an actor, that's something that we're always drawn to, is telling really good stories. So for me, it's less about, I guess, the medium per se, and it's more about, what's going to tell a really, interesting, unique story. And that's what I loved about Guardians, is that, they went out of their way to make it, a unique thing that exists in its own universe, really.
Mhm.
But am I open to more? Absolutely. I mean, as as a lifelong gamer, 100%. You know, if somebody called me tomorrow, I'm like, yeah, send me the script, I'm in. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, for me, it's about, you know, telling a really interesting story that people will resonate. And that's kind of where I gravitate, whether it's film, TV, or video games with voice or motion capture.
I'm sure there's a lot of maybe aspiring actors, creators watching this. So, what's the best piece of advice you give them for success?
Don't give up. Believe in yourself. It's we touched on this earlier, but anything in the arts can be incredibly trying at times, and especially in the entertainment industry, there's a lot of pushback. And you know, I started very young, and there's a lot of no's. Like, for every role that I have booked, there's probably a 1,000% increase in the amount of times I've been told no. It's part of the industry. It is really hard. It really is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but it's incredibly rewarding. And if you love what you do, don't let that don't let that get you down. Sorry, I really mean that, because there are times where, you know, I was like, that's it. I quit. I'm not doing this anymore. But, you know, trust in yourself. If you love what you do, just follow your heart and follow your dreams, because it will be worth it. I promise you that.
Well said.
Thank
Well,
you.
John, it's been a pleasure to talk to you, to get to know your background and hear about your experiences and everything else. Much respect to your body of work. Where can fans find you online?
If you want to say hi, I'm on all the things pretty much. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, just my name, John McLaren, Jon McLaren, like the car. Unfortunately, no relation. I also stream on Twitch a couple times a week. If there's any gamers out there who want to swing by and watch me struggle at a whole bunch of video games, I'm at, again, my name, John McLaren IRL on Twitch, if you guys want to come check it out.
John, thank you so much for your time.
Fred, thank you, man. It was a pleasure to be here.